I don't see save money on it and things like that.
The Delhi government has come up with a mandate on EV. Now, from 2028, petrol run two wheelers will not be registered. EV is the new way out. Joining us now is Gagan Choudhary, expert in automobiles. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us and speaking to the Indian Express. So, first, I want to ask you one of the key concerns is regarding the quality and the mileage of EV. There have been multiple debates around it for years now. So, can you help us
Mhm.
understand what are the pros and cons of owning a electric vehicle, especially a two wheeler?
First of all, thanks for having me. We have now evolved almost, let's say, a decade in terms of electric two-wheelers specifically. The initial wave of Chinese two-wheelers that were actually not a very high quality, had very poor. Actually, everything about those, Chinese EVs were poor. Batteries, motors, even the frames were not good. And despite the fact that some parts of the frame were manufactured in India and could have been better. But now, today, as we sit in 2026, I don't think there is any big con as such in product. But then there are things around it. For example, because of the overall quality that has come a long way, the cost also has gone up. And still, we see many people do not have proper charging infra to plug in an electric two-wheeler. So these are the still, the two things that concern people before buying it. I don't think the range is any more a problem because just imagine somebody in Delhi, how many kilometers he can anyway cover on a two-wheeler in a day. Maximum 100. There are people who do more than that, but then there are solutions out there for such people, battery swapping and things like that. So largely, let's say 90% of the people can adopt to electric two-wheeler if they have a proper charging setup at home, and if they have decent budget. So two things: budget and charging infra. Yeah.
So let's talk about, when you speak of infrastructure, electric infrastructure. So now in this particular policy, there are going to be incentives for those who are opting for EV bikes, even the three wheelers. So do you think that, will Delhi be ready to cater to this electric infrastructure? How do you see it? Because currently it's not available at large. So how do you see it grow in the next, let's say, 2 years' time?
See, well, the I have the gadget which came, I think, today only, 1st of June, as we're talking, July. The thing is, all these incentives and things were there previously also in some or other form. I see that, they are promising 30,000 for the two-wheeler, then of course 50,000 for a three-wheeler, and then four-wheeler also will get incentive depending on registration and things like that. I don't see anything that has come remarkably new and incentivizing a lot. Of course, what has changed is actually they have gone on the other side and started talking about banning registration of any other form of energy apart from electric. So that push will increase overall sales of electric two-wheelers. Nothing is happening before January 27. The first thing that get affected is actually three-wheelers and the goods vehicle. On the public front, like largely non-commercial thing, is first thing that get affected is April 28 when the sale of only electric two-wheelers will be allowed. So yes,
Yes.
there will be a now new push towards all these electric two-wheeler and sales, which is a good thing also because I remember talking to many OEMs, 10, not 10 years, but at least let's say in 2018, they were saying that entire EV revolution will actually come from two-wheelers and three-wheelers and not four-wheelers, where we were looking back then. So I think that time has come. There is absolutely no need of petrol two-wheelers for city commutes, I believe, and that can be changed. Of course, lot other things has to happen. For example, somebody who has bought an electric two-wheeler in Delhi knows that वो incentive आ ही नहीं रहे उनके. The incentives are not being paid. Then there are problems like they are not being supported with the resident welfare associations for the charging infra and things like that. So a lot of other issues needs to be solved as well. There is a very small paragraph in this particular gadget which talks about encouraging resident welfare associations, which is a 5.10, that says that we will encourage all these societies and discoms to actually help build the infra and understand. Well, a very recent case in Gurgaon actually went on the other side where they banned the electric chargers from the societies. So, a lot other things needs to be sorted. Of course, as a policy, this is a welcome thing for all the electric two-wheeler side. But this also gives little bit of ambiguity to manufacturer to do innovations apart from electric two-wheelers.
If you talk about an EV market now, I mean, in the automobile industry, how do you
Uh,
see this impacting the manufacturers as well as the whole market at large? Because if you're only going to, probably just buy EV, what happens to the rest? What about the manufactured vehicles already? If you can tell us a little about that.
See, first of all, in this policy, there is this clear thing written, very not policy, but now a gadget notification, which says 67% of total vehicle stock in Delhi is actually two-wheeler. And if you overnight change those 67% petrol to electric, of course, it is not going to happen. But even if you do, the load of the charging that is required will not be really that high because the two-wheelers do not really have big capacity batteries and things like that. But nobody is banning them overnight. The first ban that technically happens in 28, and you can buy petrol till then, and there will be a transition, very smooth transition. So even if you go full EV two-wheelers in Delhi, I don't think it will be a very big load on the entire setup, entire discom or electricity thing. Yes, of course, we will need more electricity. We will need more energy and more reliable energy, yeah, to be specific. But I don't think it will be a big hit.
How pocket friendly do you think that EV can be? Because, of course, like fuel prices are high, but when it comes to using electricity, it's also not cheaper, right? So,
Yes.
how pocket friendly do you think it is as an option?
Now that's a good question because, see, if I want to buy a decent electric two-wheeler, I have to spend at least 1 lakh rupees or 1.5 lakh rupees, let's say somewhere in between that point. But with the electric or a regular petrol two-wheeler, I can do the same thing in 75,000, approximately 75 or 70,000. So you are talking right now of spending almost 2x, if not, let's say 1.5 to 1.8x amount. For someone who is not really using two-wheelers much, it is not feasible. It's not pocket friendly at all. Let's say, assume drive my two-wheeler at least 2,000 kilometers a month. It absolutely makes sense for me to buy an electric two-wheeler. 1,000, still it makes sense. But I am someone who just take it out, let's say once in 10 days, only do some grocery, come back. the entire kilometer on Odo every month goes up only by 30, 40 kilometers. It makes no sense for me to move to an EV and spend all that much money initially and then try to figure out how to save money on it and things like that. So of course, after 28, whenever this happens, people who still do not have much running might be just looking for a second hand two-wheelers or things like that, because new they can't purchase. And of course, by that time, we don't know if the government might change it or might go back to saying that, okay, we will not even allow sales and purchase of two-wheeler, even second hand one. So people who don't want to use much, of course, electric doesn't really make sense for them. And I'm talking very low users.
So, my next question to you would be that India has many key players when it comes to EV bikes, like TVS Motors, Hero Motorcorp, but we can't deny the fact that there are multiple bike enthusiasts who look up to probably a Ducati or a Hayabusa. Or even a Harley. I
Yeah.
saw there was a Harley model which has come out of, which is an EV bike. But when we talk of these
Mhm.
luxury bikes, how do you
Mhm.
see a global investment that has come to India get affected by a decision like this?
See, for a particular state or a very small geographical area, doing it is not that big of an issue. But the problem is we follow things. For example, if Delhi has done something, maybe tomorrow some other state will just simply copy it and they will follow it as well. That's where the problem starts. For a Delhi, that we have a problem. There is this air pollution problem. It gets choked in winter, and it is understandable that harsh measures has to be taken. And while it says that 23% of the vehicular emission, the overall contribution, 23% of the contribution comes from vehicular emission. I can certainly say that there are more things that needs to be looked at. There are, dust and things like that, construction, vagara, vagara. But if other states start following, then there is a problem on a level where other industries start affecting, they're getting affected. For example, when the 350cc GST change happened on two-wheelers, many of the, especially Bajaj and Royal Enfield, they came up and said, this is really hurting us because now we will not be able to innovate and experiment above 350cc in India because our home turf, our test bed, and our bread and butter is getting affected here, and then we will not probably innovate and sell in other markets. So that's where we will, lose that competitive edge which India had, in, of course, in two-wheelers for a very long time. I think not many other states should follow such harsh measures as of now. With Delhi, it is still okay considering the pollution and other situation. And even I'm okay even if other metro cities follows. For example, Mumbai or let's say Bangalore, just Chennai. Even if they follow in their metropolitan area, it is fine.
When you see this policy, I mean, of course, it's just for Delhi as of now. Um, do you really think that, probably putting fuel run bikes completely out of business was the only way to deal with it? Could there be a middle ground you feel could have been introduced where you could have dealt with it? And in that case, what would it be?
Yes, of course, there are multiple things that has, I mean, this is a very harsh step. If you see, of course, we have 1.5 year or almost 2 years to act. But just few days back, we were talking flex fuel bikes, flex fuel cars, and just 4 months back, Petroleum Ministry and other people were promoting CNG vehicles. And 2 years back, or almost 1.5 years back, when Bajaj launched their CNG bike, everybody was happy about it. Okay, there's a CNG bike out there. Bajaj has not even, of course, there's not an official figure, but they might have not even covered their 50% of overall R&D cost from the bike, and now you're facing a ban thing. So there are other alternate fuel options, which of course has to be seen. CNG being the oldest tried and tested thing, Delhi is pioneer in using CNG, and of course it saves a lot of emission. It reduces a lot of emissions and saves a lot of cost. At the very same time, we are almost looking at flex fuel engines, flex fuel things. What I believe, ethanol and other practices, the flex fuel part is more for reducing the imports and less for emission controls. So maybe Delhi might not have seen it as big as an electric vehicle move. And I am, see, specifically for Delhi again, I believe. just the CNG part should have been looked. A CNG bike or scooter exemption could have been given. Apart from that, I don't think the flex fuel and other things make the cut, because they eventually will burn things, they will make noises and things like that, and the overall benefit is not as high, and overall the infra is not as good as the CNG. So CNG, just because we had the infra, we had the technology, okay, let's keep them, maybe let's say April 2030, and then phase them out. It could have been done, yes.
Three things you would
Yeah.
like to tell to a first time EV bike owner.
Okay. First of all, it's not underpowered by. The assumption of EVs being less powered is wrong. They are way more powerful than what you think. Of course, they are limited actually to produce more power so that it's safe. The second thing is learn how electric two-wheelers work. Learn about regeneration, learn about using less brakes and using more of regeneration. And also you have to learn, third thing, of course, you have to learn about charging and things like that. Like, you don't have to charge it every day. It can hold the charge, but it cannot hold charge for very long. So there are nuances which you have to learn about an electric a vehicle, be it a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler. So that's what I want to say, and don't fear them. They are actually better than what you are using right now.
Okay, thank you so much for talking to us and helping our viewers understand this policy in a much simplified way. And for more news and updates, keep watching Indian Express Online.